community here in person and on TV and online. And I am now officially calling to order the regular meeting of the Fairfield Planning Commission for April 27th, 2022. Mr. Feinstein, may we have the roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner Werblin?
Here.
Commissioner Smith is absent. Commissioner Evans?
Present.
Commissioner Cruzen?
Present.
Commissioner Childs?
Present.
Commissioner Childs is participating online. So what that means is tonight we will be holding all votes by roll call. And finally, Commissioner Matthews.
Present. Okay. Commissioner Cruzen, may we ask you to give the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Let me read a brief statement regarding information for the public. Persons wishing to address the Planning Commission on subjects not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission may do so, provided that no action may be taken on off-agenda items except as authorized by law. Off-agendized item from the public may be taken under consideration without discussion by the Commission and may be referred to staff. Comments will be accepted in person or via Zoom. To speak on agenda items in person, please complete a speaker card. The green cards are out on the desk, and you can just bring the card to the front. Please present the cards before the meeting or at the latest prior to the time for public comments on those particular items. When joining via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature or press *9 on your phone to request to speak. You will be called on by name and will have 3 minutes to share your views. The next item is approval of the agenda. Mr. Feinstein, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are not.
May I have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Feinstein, will you conduct the roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner Werblin?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Commissioner Cruzen?
Yes.
Commissioner Childs? Commissioner Childs, are you with us?
Yes.
Is that a yes vote on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. And Commissioner Matthews?
Yes. Okay, motion passes. Next item is approval of the minutes of April 13, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. Are there any changes to the minutes? Hearing none, may I have a motion to accept them?
So moved.
And a second?
I second.
Mr. Feinstein, please conduct the roll call vote.
Yes. Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner Werblin?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Commissioner Cruzen?
Yes.
Commissioner Childs?
Yes.
And Commissioner Matthews?
Yes. Okay, we are now entering public comment period. This is a time for public to speak on items not on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. I will now open the public comment period. I see no cards.
So if I have a question, I need to fill out a card with the question?
Is it regarding an agenda item?
No, it's just some of the concerns about the properties being built from the
regarding one of the projects we're discussing today or something separate?
The apartment building you're gonna build on.
Okay, so in that case, what you would do is fill out one of these cards, and when we get to that agenda item, the cards, Maylee can give you one there. When we get to that point, we'll call you up to speak on that topic. This portion of the public comment period is just for general items. Are there any other points that are not covered under the agenda? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period. Excuse me, I should have asked, are there any on Zoom?
We have no speakers on Zoom.
Okay, I guess we can leave it, or do I need to re-close it?
You can close it.
I'll close the public period. Okay, now we are moving into scheduled items. For each agendized item, there will be a presentation by city staff. For items involving applicant requests, I will then ask the applicant to address the commission if they so desire. Then I will open the comment period via Zoom and in person. I will close the comment period after all comments have been provided and after our questions regarding the testimony during the comment period have been answered. After the comment period is closed, the commission will deliberate on the item and may have additional questions for staff. We cannot take additional testimony or questions from the public after the comment period is closed. The first item on our agenda is item A, appointment of the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, Advisory Committee member. Our staff person is Mr. Feinstein. Please proceed.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. As staff mentioned at your last meeting, we will be seeking tonight a member of the Planning Commission to be appointed as a member of the city's Community Development Block Grant Advisory Committee. The Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG program, is a pot of money that the city receives from the federal government to be allocated for a range of different projects. And every year when we receive this allocation of funds, there are a set of projects that are either applied for or nominated to use that money. The city has a committee to review those proposals for the funding, and one of the members is a member of the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission appoints a member for 2 years to sit on the committee. And right now, your chairperson, Commissioner Matthews, is the representative of the commission to that committee. And I believe also, Commissioner Werblin, you are separately a public member right now. So what we're looking for are members of the commission either to be nominated or to volunteer themselves to be appointed to sit on that committee. If you have specific questions about how it functions, you've got a couple of your members here who can answer any questions. But as I understand it, typically most of the meetings occur roughly in the first 4 months of the year, December-ish through April-ish, in that range, for the decisions, or at least for the guidance to be given for, I believe it's the city council that ultimately makes the decisions on how that money is to be spent. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the chair to seek nominees.
I'll just comment that I have thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity to be on that subcommittee, if you will. And I highly recommend it to those that are interested. I've received interest from 2 of our commissioners. And the only other thing that I'll just mention is because of the allocation this year, the meeting, the final recommendation to the city council has not been completed. And correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Werblin, I believe it's May 6th or 9th or something like that when there's a meeting that will be held.
Correct. The funding was delayed not anything to do with the city of Fairfield, but just the housing. So we received the allocation late, thus we're meeting in May. And I believe we'll have one, but I mean, there is a chance that we may have to have another meeting during the month of May.
So there will be one or two meetings in the near term as part of that to whoever joins. With that, we will, please.
Yeah, I should also note before we take any nominations, we also would take an alternate member if there's more than one person.
Right, I was just going to bring that up. So it's, we'll have one full-time representative and then an alternate. So self-nomination is fine, but those that are interested, please let us know.
I'm interested.
Okay?
So am I. I'm interested.
So with that, shall we have,
I'll nominate Smith.
pardon me?
I'll nominate Commissioner Smith.
Okay. So the proper procedure is to have a vote on one person and then another person?
Correct. If one or the other wishes to put themselves out for the alternate, we do have two folks who have put their names in. Only one person can be the primary. It would be by vote, but if one or the other wants to be the alternate, that can also be done. But we still would need a vote by the commission to approve whatever the ultimate layout is for the appointee.
I'm
So-
fine with being an alternate.
Okay, so do we need a formal motion nominating Commissioner Smith as a primary and Commissioner Evans as the alternate?
No, I don't think, if those are the only names out there and each has slotted themselves appropriately, I think just a roll call vote is sufficient.
Okay, are we set then for a roll call vote? Let's proceed.
Okay, so the vote would be to appoint Commissioner Smith as the Planning Commission representative to the advisory committee with Commissioner Werblin, not Commissioner Werblin, Commissioner Evans as the alternate if Commissioner Smith is unavailable. So with that, I will take the roll call. Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Werblin,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Commissioner Cruzen.
No.
That was a no? Okay. Commissioner Childs?
Enthusiastically, yes.
Yes. And Commissioner Matthews?
Yes. Okay, that passes. Our next item is item B, a discussion about Parkside Flat multi-family project. This is requested by Phil Wood of Integrity Housing for the development and review of an environmental review approval to construct a 168-unit multifamily project with associated site improvements on the vacant land of approximately 4.8 acres located at 600 Woolner Avenue. Our staff person is April Wooden, and she is presenting via Zoom, correct? There we are. Welcome,
That's right.
April.
Good evening. It's nice to be back with you again, and especially nice to be here with such an exciting project for the city. Let me pull up the PowerPoint and share my screen. There we go. Is that showing up on the screen for everyone?
It is April. Can you,
Yes. Okay,
can you make
great.
it, bring it up to full so that your main presentation occupies the whole screen, rather, we see your thumbnails on the left. I think if you hit F5, maybe.
You might have to enable editing first.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
April, you may need to click the enable editing at the top of the screen there.
Well, we had this up earlier. Let's see.
We'll see if we can run it here internally in the council chambers.
Let me, I'll stop sharing and see if you can just, oh, now it's up there, right?
There we go.
Okay, so is that on the screen now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'm just gonna click here and make sure that I cannot move it. Okay, that's not gonna, somebody's gonna have to advance it, unfortunately.
Yep. We have staff here advancing it for you.
Okay, all right, we just had this working earlier. I apologize sincerely. So here's the vicinity map. The project is located, as you can see, on the corner of Woolner Avenue and Gregory Lane. The primary entrance will be here on Woolner with a gated EVA access up here at the top of Gregory Lane. It's currently a vacant site. It has been used by the city in the past for both a water treatment plant and then more recently for a materials storage yard. It is the catalytic site 1 in the heart of Fairfield specific plan. And that's one of the reasons that I'm so happy to bring this project to you. The design is, it reflects the goals and objectives of the Heart of Fairfield plan in a really accurate way by providing a multifamily project on this site adjacent to Allen Witt Park. There we go. The zoning is Heart of Fairfield residential. And there were 140 units anticipated in the Heart of Fairfield specific plan, but the applicant has been able to design the project in a way that actually upped the density right up to the maximum that's permitted. So we're looking at a project of 168 residential units, and those are a combination of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, all at affordable rentals. There are 36 one-bedroom, one-bath units, 104 two-bedroom, two-bath, which is obviously the largest segment of the community, and then an additional 28 three-bedroom, three-bath units. The city requires that a multifamily project of this size provide 2 major and 2 minor amenities, and those have been provided through the provision of a community room, a computer center, a fitness center, and then the most significant amenity of the pool with an adjacent barbecue and picnic area. So under the parking standards, each unit should have 1.33 parking spaces allotted. That would be 224 spaces. And the project is designed to provide 251 spaces. And these are all on-site. We are not including any on-street parking either on Woolner or on Gregory to count toward that total. This is the site plan for the project. As you can see, here's the main entrance on Woolner. It's a series of 6 residential buildings. They front nicely on Woolner, creating an interesting and inviting pedestrian streetscape here, as well as on Gregory Lane. And then the 2 smaller residential buildings toward the back help to protect the amenity area, the pool, the barbecue, and the community room and fitness center to keep it interior on the site. As you can see, there's extensive landscaping all the way around the project. And so it really blends very nicely into the existing streetscape on Woolner. This is the conceptual landscape plan, and the mixture of trees that have been selected and shrubbery conforms to the city's planting guidelines. At the origination of the project, there was some discussion of whether the trees by the pool would be palm or something else, and at the city's request, the applicant has agreed not to use palm trees, which sometimes present some significant both cost in maintenance and other issues. So they will be a different type of tree. There's a heavy landscaping buffer here. There's also additional landscaping outside the actual site, separating this project from Allenwood Park. This is the view from Woolner Avenue. When city staff reviewed it, we liked the feel of it. We liked the integration into the existing neighborhood, but we felt that, especially given that it was adjacent to the park, that a little bit livelier color palette could be used. So the applicant has provided something that will be more similar to this, which we think, again, blends very nicely into the existing neighborhood. These are the floor plans, the 1 and 2 bedroom units and 3 bedroom units. So one of the key issues that came up as we were analyzing this project was sewer capacity, because at the time that sewer capacity was analyzed for the Heart of Fairfield specific plan, it was anticipated to be about 150 multifamily units. And just wanting to make sure that those additional 18 units did not create any downstream issues or other sewer problems. There was an update to the sewer analysis completed, which confirmed that there is available sewer capacity for all 168 units. In terms of environmental review, this project is categorically exempt under the CEQA guidelines section 15332 infill development. In fact, it's exactly the kind of project that CEQA was hoping to provide some fast tracking for environmental review, as long as the project could meet these specific requirements. The first is that the project is consistent with the applicable general plan designation, policies, and zoning designation, and that is met. The development occurs within city limits on a site that's less than 5 acres and is surrounded by urban uses. And since this site is 4.82 acres, it also meets that requirement. The site has no habitat value, and that has been clearly established by the prior uses of the site for both the water treatment plant and the materials storage yard. And that there are no other significant environmental effects that might result from the project, and it also meets that criteria because any environmental impacts have already been analyzed either through the environmental review that was provided at the time that the Heart of Fairfield specific plan was considered and adopted, or through things like analysis of trip generation for this specific project and analysis of the sewer capacity so that we could make sure that there were not significant environmental effects that we were not aware of. And then finally, it's a requirement that the site can be served by utilities and public services, and all utilities and public services are provided to the site, so that condition was met as well. So at the time that the staff report was prepared, I had not received any public comment on the project. And I just wanted to note that although the staff report says that there wasn't any, there were 2 emails sent to me today, one supporting the project and one opposing the project. And it's my understanding that both of those emails have been forwarded by email to the commissioners. So in terms of conditions on the project, the Public Works, Fire Department, and Sewer have all provided their standard conditions on the project, and the applicant has been made aware of those conditions and is willing to meet all of them in the development of this project. I think at this point I will conclude and simply say that staff heartily recommends that the commission adopt resolution 2022-06, granting approval of, no, maybe it is 21. I will leave that to other people to determine what the correct resolution number is. And for development review, DR 2021-022. And if I have misstated anything, I hope that the applicant in their response to the commission will clarify anything that perhaps I didn't explain the way that they would prefer to have it explained. And I'm also happy to answer any questions that the commissioners might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, April. Before we open the public comment period, what questions do the commissioners have for Ms. Wooten or the applicant? Commissioner Smith.
So I think there were 2 numbers cited that I figured maybe one of them was a typo, but it mentioned 140 versus 150 that were units that were part of the Heart of Fairfield plan, and then 168 being, I guess, the maximum zoning that the project is recommending. Can we get a
Yes,
clarification?
I can
on that?
clarify that. The Heart of Fairfield specific plan looked at 140 units. The sewer analysis that was done as part of the environmental review for the Heart of Fairfield specific plan looked at 150 units, and the applicant proposed 168 units. So an update to the sewer analysis was completed within the last 6 months, confirming that there is in fact sewer capacity for all 168 units. And those 168 units do not exceed the allowed density on the site.
Okay, so it's 28 units more than what was originally proposed, or 18?
So when the Heart of Fairfield plan was adopted, as April mentioned, this was identified as a catalyst site, a site that the plan envisioned as one of the sites to focus on for development. At that time, it wasn't known exactly what the ultimate yield would be for this site, but it estimated it would be about 140. Ultimately, the City Council, on recommendation of the Planning Commission, approved zoning for this site that allows up to 35 units to the acre, which allows, I believe it's 168 and change, 168.7, I think, units to be built. So the plan, without knowing exactly what the final yield would be, said 140 is probably about what it would be, but ultimately the City Council approved a density range that allowed up to 168.7, so we have a proposal that came in that falls within that range. The 150 was the amount of units that were evaluated under the original sewer analysis for this site. When the ultimate plan came forward with those extra 18, the additional analysis looked at those extra 18 just to confirm that we could meet any sewer flows coming out of this site.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Please.
I have a question on the lines of Commissioner Smith's comments about the 168 units, those additional units with the sewer analysis. Is that taking into consideration just the number of units, or does the calculation include how many people, the maximum number of people that could be in the unit? Is that number taken into consideration when they're doing the sewer analysis?
So the sewer analysis is based on long-term evaluations of typical flows coming out of multifamily, of the sizes that are shown for this project. So it doesn't necessarily look at here's the maximum amount of people, but it makes reasonable assumptions as far as the amount of flow from each unit over time. And the analysis didn't find that there's no room for, margin for error. There's extra space in there. We just wanted to make sure that based on, what typical flows were from apartment projects like this, that it wasn't going to create any issues, and that's what the analysis found.
Thank you. And then my second question is, are there any units for the disabled?
For disabled?
Correct.
Yeah, April, I don't know if you have an answer to that or if that's a question more for the applicant.
I think that it's required that a certain number of units be accessible, but yes, I would prefer that the applicant respond to that.
Thank you.
So, Dave, can we have the applicant respond before we open public comment? Okay, may we invite the applicant to come forward? Thank you for being here, Ms. Wood.
Absolutely, thank you. In response, yes, there will be units that comply with ADA per California Building Code.
Why don't you hang tight and just see if there are any other questions from commissioners?
I have a few questions. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for the application, by the way. In terms of affordable housing, are we talking about affordable below market rate, or are we talking about affordable subsidized via HUD?
It will be affordable below market rate. There aren't any subsidies per se on the project. We have had conversations with the Fairfield Housing Authority about a very small number, maybe 5 units of project-based Section 8 housing. But overall, we'll be restricting incomes on the households to the 50% and 80% AMI levels.
Okay, and that's just for the 5 units. The rest of the units are just below market rate affordable housing.
There will be up to around 5 project-based voucher units. The remainder of the project will be 20% at the 50% AMI level, the remaining 80% at the 80% AMI level.
And I'm just wondering about the entries and exits. I don't know if that's a question for you or if we need to shoot that back to April. If we'll have entrance on Woolner and Gregory, or if it'll just be on Woolner.
April, I don't know if you heard that question, if you're able to provide the answer.
Yes, the only access on Gregory is a gated EVA, emergency vehicle access. So all the other access to the site will be from the Woolner side.
So the only site access will be on Gregory only, except for the Woolner, but that's for specialty only.
No, it's the other way around.
Oh, okay.
The primary entry is on Woolner. Let me see if I can go back to the.
April, it's showing on the screen now.
Oh, okay. Yes, so the primary entrance to the project is on Woolner. The access that's on Gregory Lane is just for emergency vehicles, and it will be gated.
Okay. Got it. I think for now, I think that's all of my questions for now. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm wondering, on the access for Woolner Avenue, is that gated at all, or just open? And meaning, when I say gate, security gate, or just open access? And this project is adjacent to, I think, right up against Allen Witt Park's parking lot. Is there any access from that park to this complex? And what does that look like? And also
So there
answering
is-
that with the framework of security, crime, that sort of thing. Thank you.
So I guess I'd like to say two things. The primary access to the site from Woolner is not anticipated to be gated. You're correct. The only thing between the parking lot at Allen Witt Park and this project is landscaping. So I don't know if there is any intention to try to create some pedestrian access directly from the project toward Allen Witt Park, but it's certainly accessible by going down the sidewalk on Woolner. This project, being a multifamily project, is also subject to the city's crime-free multifamily housing program, which the applicant will coordinate with the police department to use the SEPTED standards for minimizing opportunities for crime and other issues to occur in multifamily projects in the city. And in the past, that has been a very successful program between the coordination with the applicant and the police department. And the project is conditioned on that program.
And if I might add, and April, I apologize if it wasn't clear in our plan set, we do plan on vehicular gates and pedestrian gates on the Woolner entrance exit, and then as well as in between the buildings, gating that does secure the site around the perimeter. It was within the early conversations we had with the city, having a gate wrought iron, if you will, that runs the entire perimeter of the site was not favorable. And so our idea here was to run the gates of the property between the buildings to where the buildings are also still exterior to the property, but still secure the interior side of the property.
So I'm sorry, I'm not clear on that. Where would the fencing be around the buildings?
So if you, I'll use kind of the lower left corner as we're looking at the screen up here. You can see a faint gray line in between the open space on the buildings. A little bit further down, right about there. So we have those in between.
Oh, I see.
Each of these
Those
buildings.
will be fencing. What about on the perimeter adjacent to Allen Witt?
It doesn't show up great here in the site plan, but the idea would be to run the fencing from we'll call it upside, north side of the building along the park to the rear of the property line.
So will there be fencing around the perimeter?
Yes. It will be the entire perimeter will be secured. It will be a combination of fencing and the buildings themselves.
Understood. And to Commissioner Wordblin's question, will there be pedestrian access from the project into Allen Witt Park?
Not directly into the park. Because of where it joins with the parking lot, we wouldn't want residents stepping directly into parking stalls or the parking lot itself.
Okay.
And it's a very short walk from where that entrance is coming out the main entrance of the property.
And around?
Yeah.
Okay, other commissioner questions?
I just want to clarify the gates as well. So the buildings themselves will have gates, but not the property. Like, not the entire, you know what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah,
like the-
so the idea is to be able to bring the property itself, and this was how the preferred aesthetic that was brought to us initially, is to have the buildings themselves out there as much on the street front as possible. And so the gates themselves connect the buildings, so where we would see, call it access, if you will, in between the buildings, that portion will be gated off. There won't be fencing in front of, say, bedroom windows.
Okay. And the fencing that is going to be on the Allen Witt side, is there also going to be shrubbery in front of those gates, or is it, how's that part?
There is landscaping planned for in that space, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
There's a brief view of it. There's a lot of detail in that plan.
Sorry, Ms. Wood, just while you're talking, why don't you take 2 or 3 minutes and introduce your company and some of the other projects with respect to Northern California and Fairfield?
Absolutely. I'm Phil Wood. I'm with Integrity Housing. We're a 501c3 nonprofit affordable housing developer. We're based out of Southern California. Our office is in Irvine. We do affordable housing throughout the state of California. We have a portfolio now of about 3,000 units. We're in California, Arizona, Texas, Oregon, and Colorado. We have a number of projects up here in Northern California, kind of starting from the South Bay in Belmont, going through San Leandro, Hayward, Concord. We just delivered a new construction project in Santa Rosa, and we're planning to break ground on a new project in July, also in Santa Rosa, and then we continue east in the city of Davis, and we have 2 projects in the city of Sacramento. Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Cruzen.
My question is, I don't know if you can answer it, maybe someone from our staff. With 168 units proposed, there's only one entryway. I'm just kind of, why couldn't we have the second one? I understand the left and the top, it's closed out. Why won't we have access on the other side as well? Because normally most apartments, they have at least one other optional for just exit, to at least exit apartment complexes. So could you explain that?
Do you recall that early on?
Yes, only one is required, and the fire department's very happy with the second.
Yeah, there was only one point of egress required by the project. The second point, actually, the emergency vehicle access was not initially required by the fire department, but we wanted it to be included in the project. Do you recall early? This is Pat Morrill, my development partner.
I'm a construction guy.
Yeah.
Sorry. So with regard to the entrances, this is the way it was shown. The city liked it. The recommendation was we have the one entrance. A lot of it's, I think, maybe for security, but at the secondary entrance, there'll be a gate so pedestrians can get in and out.
So you guys are obligated to do the emergency exit, but you guys did. Were you guys prevented from, you guys aren't obligated to make a second exit?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Small too.
Has there been a traffic study performed yet?
Yes.
Okay. And that also detailed the impact on Woolner Avenue of the 250 plus or minus cars?
Yes, of all they go through the whole hour of the day, cars per minute, that sort of thing. It's all been submitted.
I see our traffic engineer coming forward. Mr. Wong, do you want to make a presentation about the traffic?
Our traffic engineer is actually remote. So he's on
Okay. Okay, well, let's go back. Are there other, Commissioner Cruzen, have you finished your question?
I'm good, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Because I really like the idea of the project being right here, so I have like a lot of questions tonight. I'm just wondering if the traffic evaluated how that works with the intersection that's slightly before that entryway to the apartments right there. So there's an intersection right at Gregory and Woolner. I'm wondering if that's been evaluated, especially considering that there's a school right down the street as well. And I'm also wondering if one of the special conditions is something having to do with better development of the sidewalks on Gregory Lane. Because if I'm not mistaken, it's either this side that the project is going to be located on or the other side, but one of them has like no sidewalk or very low sidewalk.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners and the members of the public. My name is Alvin Lay, Senior Civil Engineer for the Public Works Department. Sorry I took a little bit to come up here, but hopefully I can help provide some insight to your questions. I also have my city traffic engineer as well as our transportation planner available on Zoom to answer any questions that you may have about traffic. So if you could please reiterate that, they can help provide some insight on that. I did want to provide some response for the sidewalk question that Commissioner Evans had. As part of this development, the developers and these gentlemen here are required to install new sidewalk along both the Woolner Avenue and Gregory Lane project frontages. So as part of this development, sidewalk will be constructed along both streets. And I understand that you had a couple questions about the singular driveway access or what kind of traffic analyses has been conducted. So I'll defer that to my city traffic engineer and our transportation planner for that.
We're trying to get a moment in.
Okay, Garland Wong is on the line.
Garland, can you hear us?
Yeah, this is Garland Wong.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Yes, so no additional analysis in terms of traffic was required because it was a part of the specific plan. And so other than the BMP that was required for CEQA, that was the only thing that was required of them. Now, they did do some additional analysis on the traffic and really just looked at trip generation. But in terms of like level of service, that's not required of them to do. And so that was all done as part of the specific plan. And so the intersection analysis that was done as a part of the specific plan accounted for the use that was going in this parcel. What was required was the VMT analysis. And so they did conduct the VMT analysis and it was screened out. So under the state criteria, if the project is 100% affordable, it's considered screened out and therefore exempt from any additional analysis. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Well, if I might, we understand that it may not be required, but there's definitely community concern about the impact of traffic. And so I think we'd like to have some greater discussion, clarity around how adding 250 vehicles, especially at peak times in the morning and night, will impact the community.
So Commissioner Matthews, I'd like to address that if I could,
Yes.
just because I was part of the original Heart of Fairfield plan when we put it together, and we asked a lot of those questions and got a lot of those studies early on in order to ensure that projects like this would be cleared for that. And that's essentially what the traffic department is telling us, is that back then, 10 years ago, when we were putting these plans together and looking at specific lots in downtown Fairfield and the areas and saying, how can we best serve the needs? How can we rezone these in order to bring developers like this into the project and make things happen? We did those studies then in order to free that up. It's unfortunate we change commissioners all the time because then we lose track of some of this stuff, and I understand that, but I just want to say that we did do all of that early on, and that's part of it. Albeit it was for an estimated 140 units, but we didn't have any way of knowing what a developer would come in. We did know that we were approving it ultimately for up to 35 units per acre, so I knew that there was that chance at the time.
Thanks for that background, Commissioner McDonald.
And if you would, let me chime in. So they did do additional analysis and they did do a trip generation. And I believe that under the trip generation for the units that are provided, it would provide additional, I think it was like 90 units or 90 trips in the peak hour. So if you look at it over an hour period in PM peak, it's about 90 trips, in and out trips that are generated. And in the analysis portion, we don't really look at any, like generally overall, there's really no impacts to intersections when it's under 150 trips in peak hour. And so if in the sense, if you look at this as an isolated intersection and an isolated condition, if we were to look at it, it would not generate the impact that that you would be thinking it would impact. So in terms of just the analysis itself, they're required, we're not adding additional information. We are actually just making sure that, they do clear CEQA and that this project again was cleared under the specific plan.
And just to be clear, there's both left-hand turn in and right-hand turn into the project. Is that correct, off of Woolner?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, other commissioner questions, please.
I do have one that we haven't talked about, but I do want to address just because this particular project is really surrounded by high density outside of the park. And so I know that when we were doing Clay Bank and a couple other projects, we had some real concerns come in after the fact, and that was with dust, controlling all of that, and people have pools around the area. It was affecting their HVAC systems and so forth. I'm assuming we've put measures in place and taken mitigation efforts in order to make sure when we do the construction there that that's going to not be a problem, and or we're reaching out to the residents in there, because like I can see one pool here, and I'm sure there's probably more that become can be overtaxed with their filtration systems when they get tons of construction dust. And I just bring that out because it's such an infill project that I presume that's going to be a big construction project. They're already complaining in Green Valley about the same issues over there with all the dust that gets kicked up over there with the winds and so forth. So just asking if we've done anything on that level.
So would that be a condition?
So I don't believe there's a condition in the project right now. Alvin, did you have a?
Sure. So just to chime in here a little bit, so a typical condition from Public Works is for developers and applicants to provide adequate dust control and erosion control measures as much as possible. What that typically means for this site here, I would anticipate some degree of watering to kind of clump all the potential particulates together, so minimize the amount of dust that can go airborne. Does that provide some insight and perspective?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we're all aware that that could potentially be a problem.
Any other questions? Just to be clear, are there any known environmental issues with the parcel, knowing that it was used for storage and other things? There will be some, even though it's CEQA exempt, there will be some level 1 study or something, I would assume?
Yes, there was actually a phase 2, which is even more in-depth. I believe a copy of that was included in your staff report packet. The report concluded that the site is suitable for residential development. It has certain recommendations about, there's some fill that was put in there to fill some old basins that were in there. And so there's recommendations in there on proper removal of that fill and treatment of that site. The very first condition for the Public Works requires that the submittal for the building permits demonstrate that it's complying with all of those site requirements to ensure that the soil, any issues with the soil are addressed.
Very good. So, assuming all the commissioners have asked their questions, we thank the applicant for participating, and I will now open the public hearing portion of the meeting. I have 4 speaker cards. If there are more people that wish to speak on this topic, please fill out one of these green cards and bring it to the front. And do we know if we have anyone on Zoom? And I assume what we'll try to do is alternate.
Yeah, at the moment, it's showing 2 hands are raised, so it looks like we have a couple of speakers on Zoom.
Okay, so we'll start with Joyce Carter. Please come forward. And you'll have 3 minutes to express your views. Thank you for being here.
I'm on the HOA board for Parkview Village, which is the property adjoining this property, and we're not as enthusiastic about this project as you are. We have 84 units on the same size parcel as what you're going to build 168 units on. And I'm here to tell you that there is not adequate parking in our complex, and we have above the 1.3. Everybody in our complex has a minimum of 2 cars. We have teenagers, we have 3 bedrooms, have 4 cars. So this parking thing is not going to work. I don't care what the studies say. Boots on the ground will come on over and take a look at our complex, and we'll be more than happy to show it to you as to what we undergo every day. The first thing I am concerned about is the parking. Brenda's here with me. She's also on the board. I'm the treasurer, and she's the vice president. So we have the same size property, and we have this parking problem. With the traffic that is going to be coming out of Woolner, that place is a zoo trying to get through there now. And without a traffic light or something to control the traffic in the early mornings, it's going to be a mess. You have children walking to school and all of this stuff going on, and it's not, even with the sidewalks, there needs to be some kind of traffic control on there to slow the cars down because they fly down through their speed bumps. That's a good idea. The wall, there's supposed to be a CMU wall that's going to be as part of the project, should be. Can you bring the thing back up for the view of the property, the plan? Anyway, our property butts right directly up to it. Okay, we're on the top wall, at the top of that top line, that's us. Okay, so there's supposed to be a CMU wall that's to be installed there. That's not on us. We have our wall put up, but the CMU is mandatory to be put in here because of the maintenance and everything else for what's going to be going on. We don't want to have any part of that. And the trees that will be planted, I notice you have trees all across the back there. That's beautiful, but the tree roots are going to be their problem as far as the retaining wall. The other thing is the crime. We're very concerned about the crime because by having this wide open, you have houses on the street that are going to be part of this retaining portion. That's not going to keep them out. You're going to have busted windows all the way along the sides. We have been fighting crime since we've been there, and I've owned my property since 1980, so 82. So after 40 years, I'm very familiar with what goes on in the area. And we have fought like crazy to get it cleaned up to where we can all live there in peace and harmony. And now we're bringing this in, and we're going to have a problem, okay? I have a letter from the HOA, but I didn't.
Sorry, it's been 3 minutes, so.
Oh, sorry. Okay, Brenda.
If you want to make 1 or 2 final comments.
Okay. My 1 or 2 final comments is the density factor of what we're going to be putting in there. It's just too many people. We have 7, 8 people living in 3-bedroom units. It's going to be.
Thank you for sharing your views. Let's take the first caller on.
Okay, we have Ty Lambert on the phone.
Hello, can everybody hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
We can hear you, Ty.
All right. I'm also here to speak on behalf of Parkview Village at 423 Gregory, so the adjoining property there. And I did want to ask that question specifically about what provision for barrier wall on that property line that joins the property has been given. Also, do the traffic studies include Gregory Lane? Because Gregory Lane's going to be used as a primary thoroughfare over here from West Texas Street. And you look at freeway access, and the easiest route to get down to that property is it's going to divert so much traffic down Gregory Lane, and it's at capacity right now. And to speak to Joyce's comment regarding the parking, you have 1.3 cars estimated per. Do you guys have a like an estimate of how many residents are actually going to be in? And did you do studies or analysis on how many adults are estimated to be in the new project, driving age, basically? And the parking is going to overflow onto Gregory, possibly to Park Lane, and then through, you got all the residential areas around there also. It's going to be problematic. It's already hard enough to get out of Park Lane, which is our second access to the community, onto Gregory the way it is now. And you're going to be diverting all these other vehicles into the area during high traffic times. It's dangerous, and other provisions need to be taken on Gregory Lane as well. Also had questions regarding site lighting and what that looks like, especially along that property line, and how it's going to affect our residents inside of our community with additional lighting, privacy concerns, and I want to just throw in there the security measures that are going to be possibly problematic as well.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I'll just make a note that we won't respond to questions real time, but once everyone has raised their issues, then staff will respond to those questions as they come up. Next card that I have is Barbara Moreno. Barbara, will you please come forward?
Please forgive me, but I also have AMD and I can't see any of you. I'm the longest, oldest person living on Gregory. I've been there 80 years. And when we first moved there, there was only 3 houses. There's now 10, including one that Joseph is in. Every day I have 4 and 5 cars from Park Lane Apartments that park in front of my house. I can't have any company ever come to see me because there is no place to park. And the thing that bothers me the most when I first read about this is the hundreds of children that walk down Woolner Avenue up Gregory, and the amount of traffic that's on Gregory is unreal. There's 3 apartment complex on Gregory. The cars come out on Gregory, and right across the street from my house is the Fairfield Corporation Yard. And the buses and the trucks pull out at 5 o'clock every morning. And the people that play their music 2, 3 o'clock in the morning right outside my bedroom window is unreal. I don't know if anybody ever even thought about that, but you know the thousands of dollars it's going to take to build and to scrap all the cement that's under the ground that has the city water holding tanks that's under that ground? There must be 6 or 8 huge tanks that's like swimming pools, all cement. How in the hell are you going to run piping for clear water, sewer lines, and everything to 168 apartments when the piping has to go under that ground? I read the story about this and I cried and cried. I couldn't believe it. How can I be on that street for 80 years and see all the traffic? And like Joseph mentioned too, he has seen 3 bad car accidents right next to my house. And my house is the one right next to Park Lane. I don't think anybody even considered the children that are going to school there and the amount of children that are walking up and down that street every day. The only thing that I heard today that, thank God, is that you're not going to have another gate that comes out on Gregory Street, because I don't think we could handle that. That's about all that I have to say.
Thank you for coming, Barbara.
You're welcome.
Let's have the next Zoom caller.
Okay, next we have Chris.
Good evening. Hopefully you guys can hear me.
Yes.
We can hear you, Chris.
20-plus year resident here on the other side of the street from Woolner. I don't think that traffic assessment is correct that you're talking about. Thursdays and Friday nights, you literally have cars lined up and down Woolner trying to get off of Highway 12 or off of Highway 80 and get into Vacaville and Sassoon. You try to get out of here between about 4 o'clock all the way to 6, you're literally looking at lines of cars coming from back up Woolner, trying to cut through downtown Fairfield to get to the other side and get over to Peabody and places like that to get home. In the morning, you literally have probably 100 to 125 children and families walking their kids to the school up and down that street on both sides. It's hard to turn because you have to wait for kids to cross the street. And another complaint I've got too is you guys have destroyed Allenwood Park. You've taken the kids' play zone away and replaced it with a dog park. Now you got more kids who are basically running around trying to cross the street, get into the parking lot to skate. They hang out in the barbecue area. And then you're gonna put more people in that whole area and increase the amount of traffic. I do agree with the people about Parkview. There are cars every day. We came home today at 5. There's gotta be at least 30, 40 cars down Gregory Lane. And in the evenings, you got homeless people parking inside the park and down that side of the street, all the way down to about the school on the far side. Homeless people, you guys have kind of worked on that a little bit, but there's still a lot of people wandering through that area. And in my 23 years of living here, so many times I've had police come. They chase people out of the apartment complex. They've cleaned it up a lot, but I've had at least 15 arrests in my backyard over those years. And I now have a younger child that I have to sit there and watch, worrying if somebody's going to come over the fence into our yard again. We've had that happen many times. And property value, I mean, 23 years, we put a ton of money into fixing up our property, our house, our home. And now you guys want to jam a bunch of people across the street from us who could possibly at a 3-story look into our backyard. That's really not something I want to do. It's going to really toast the value of homes in this area and increase the traffic. I know my 3 minutes is up, so thank you for your time.
Thank you for sharing your views. Next, we'll hear from Brenda Brown. Please come forward.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. I'm the Vice President of Parkview Village, HOA, and our concern that I'm bringing here today is basically the same thing, but I'm talking about the fence that is going to cross our complex. It's right there, the first one there by the parking lots. And it's going to be gated, an iron gate, which is the dust is going to come through. And also, we were wondering if they would even consider having like a concrete wall, so you don't have the noise and you don't have as much dust or something coming through. And I haven't heard that, and I was wondering if they would be amenable to doing that. Is that a problem, or would it be a problem to use a concrete wall instead of iron gate?
We'll address that once
Okay.
everybody's made their comments.
Okay, that's all.
Anything else?
That's
Thank you for coming. We have another online call.
Yes, we have Lynette C.
Sorry about the delay. So my comment is, people keep on saying that we're going to be adding 250 cars that are going to be driving through the area. And maybe that number just stuck in people's head because someone said 250 parking spots. But it's 250 parking spots, not 250 cars. I would say 300 is a lowball estimate for how many cars there are going to be. As everyone said, there's already the parking issues on Gregory. I'm across the street from Woolner in the houses. And that street on Woolner that the apartments will be at, that's a very thin street. I don't even know if, they might be able to park on that street, but again, with all the kids in the area, it's pretty dangerous because there's no margin for error for drivers that are going down that road. For going down Woolner, especially east, once you get to Allenwood Park, it widens up a bit. It's easier, so I don't know if there's going to be any changes to the depth of Woolner right in front of the apartment, but parking is going to be dangerous there. Also, people are going to be parking at the park. There's not going to be enough places for people to actually go and use the park if they don't live in the immediate area. And they can park outside, but if they want to go straight to the playground, like I said, there's only kind of one area with all the parking right where where the spot will be. So yeah, it's just going to be difficult. But that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you conclude there? Okay. Next, we'll have Joseph Gonzalez. Please come forward.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Gonzalez, retired U.S. Postal Service. I live at 314 Gregory Lane. Some of my concerns are, well, the crime, like they said. They broke into my house already 3 times. One time they broke in and they robbed my wife. Luckily, she played dead, so they just took the jewelry, but she still, well, when she was alive, she was okay. In traffic, yes. I know it's a shortcut between Woolner and West Texas. Police use it all the time, but some of these speeders, especially like around Enterprise, there's these car shops, and they modify these cars, and they zoom by 80 miles an hour. At least. I mean, I've seen at least 5 accidents, because the exit from Parkview is next to Barbara's house, so I've seen at least 5 accidents there. There's always, one's coming in, one's coming out, and the speeders don't see them, and they hit them. But the thing is, on my side of the street, there is no sidewalk. So when the children are coming, they have to run across the street from the corporation yard to Barbara's house because there's no sidewalk. And one of these days, I know I'm going to see a child. And my grandchildren are there, so I have to put up a fence now, maybe a wall. But the corporation yard has those cameras. I don't know why they don't catch these people. Another thing, parking, yes, like there's no sidewalk, and now they're gonna have visitors. I don't know what kind of visitors, but they have to find parking, and since there's no sidewalk on my side, maybe putting a new sidewalk might be good, but it's gonna be more parking. Now, I think if you're gonna put a sidewalk there, put a pole right next to the corporation yard that has one of those speed digital displays, so some of these guys, when they see 80 miles an hour, maybe they might stop. Or maybe even put one of those police cameras. Maybe that might scare the people to calm down if they see a camera there. The other thing that's bothering is the noise. There's going to be noise from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. They're going to be construction. They're going to be, it's bad enough that the cars next door, the trucks come out. I mean, I kind of like it because I know the police are in there, the SWAT team's in there, their little drones are up there. I mean, it's fine. And then they got all that gas underneath there. Every morning I see those gasoline tankers, so it's another thing that's in the back of my mind as they're right next door. And then finally, the view. I mean, my window faces the west. I get to see the sunset. My grandchildren get to see. Now I got to see, I don't know what I'm going to see there. They said they're not going to put an exit there, just an emergency, but, well, I guess that's okay. But, I mean, where's the garbage truck going to come pick up their garbage? Is it going to come through Woolner, or is it going to come through there? And then on the other side, next to the park, that's where they dump the sand when it starts raining, so people are going to find someplace else to put the sand, I think. And ever since over there where the barbecue is, that's where they dumped that girl's body, right? And so ever since then, I've been looking at that lot. So I'm kind of glad they're going to do something. But crime, I hope it doesn't become a high-risk area.
Joseph, thanks for sharing your views. Do we have anybody else online?
There's one additional hand raised, yes.
Okay, let's proceed with that.
Okay.
Once that person has shared their views, our last in-person speaker will be Cora Williams.
Okay, online we have Anatoly Gavrilyuk.
Good evening.
We can hear you.
Good evening, Planning Commission. Anatoly Gavrilyuk with Carpenters. I have a question for the applicant. If the applicant will be required to general contractor to pay area standards, wages, and benefits, and use apprenticeship, joint labor management, local hiring, if they're going to require general contractor have dental, and medical insurance for their employees. If this is a project, will be required prevailing wage. Thank you.
Thank you. Cora, please come forward.
Good evening, everyone. I live on Stevens Street, which is a cross street of where this complex is coming. My granddaughter has attended Sheldon School, and in the mornings, there's plenty of traffic, more than enough traffic. We've been late enough, I know that. And also with the park being there and with the other apartment complexes there, we have plenty of traffic in there, and there's overflow. In my neighborhood alone, we have, when the park has something going on, all the traffic comes around and parks in that area, and we can't park in front of our own homes. And sometimes there's such an overflow that it parks and blocks our driveways in. I've had to call the police to have people move their cars because of that. I've seen many accidents or near accidents in that area. And the crime, speaking of the crime rate, we're going through a lot right now in that area. Last night, I just had my catalytic converter almost cut out. Luckily enough, I woke up and I heard the grinding noise, and that was stopped. But, and where this exit is, that exit, entrance and exit of this complex here is right there at Edwards, and that's gonna cause a big problem. People are coming in and out, going to and from work. People are coming down Woolner, back and forth, getting to and from work and getting their children to school. That's a lot of problems there. I've had to slam on brakes to keep from having a near miss with children going across the street because they're not paying attention all the time. They're on skateboards, they're on bikes, and I think this is going to be a big problem. And I also am in agreement with the dust and all of that, and we already have plenty of that also from the different automotive shops and things around there. And there's noise pollution because of that too. People are cutting donuts and wheelies and all around there. I just don't see this happening. And that concludes what I have to say, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for coming in. We appreciate your views. All right, no further online comments?
That's correct.
Now, let's see, just to be clear, I closed the public hearing first?
Yep.
Okay, the public hearing portion is now closed. Would staff like to respond to several of the questions and issues that have been raised?
Sure, I'll take some of them. I don't know if I'm addressing everything that was raised. There were lots of different comments, but I do want to start with this. This is the first major project to be proposed, certainly for this part of the heart of Fairfield. It's the first of many that we expect to see. What I will say is that this project is exactly within line of what was envisioned for the heart of Fairfield, and I think the key message is the heart of Fairfield envisions change for this part of the city of Fairfield. Doesn't mean everybody embraces change, but the vision that was adopted by the city for this area is for a greater degree of density with buildings out close to the street. City Council approved zoning for this up to 35 units per acre. So it was pre-envisioned that that's what this site would be. And it's a question of, are there issues that, project conditions that can be placed to address those. The Heart of Fairfield plan looked at the traffic at the various intersections that would be generated not just by this project, but up to 1,600 additional units in and around the blocks in this area under the Heart of Fairfield, and concluded that the intersections would be able to meet the city's standards. The other thing to note is that the city's adopted standards for traffic don't necessarily mean that the roads are empty of cars. Part of progress and part of development of the city is that it will generate traffic. And the city's standards for traffic, what we had called at that time level of service D, does assume there will be cars at intersections during the evening peak periods. It's a question of does it go more than what's allowed under the city general plan, and the answer was no. Even with adding 1,600 cars, the city intersections in this area still functioned acceptably. And again, it may be more traffic than a person would want. Ideally, we don't have any cars that we're competing with. But the only way to see progress in this city is to allow some amount of traffic on the roads. The other issue I do want to note is that since the Heart of Fairfield plan was adopted, the state has stepped in to tell us that intersection performance and the amount of traffic on the streets is not considered an environmental impact, and it's not something that we can consider as an impact to be mitigated for this area. The state looked at traffic impact and said this is something that's holding up the state's ability to provide housing for our residents, and has stepped in to preclude us from considering whether or not there's too much traffic. That being said, the Heart of Fairfield plan did conclude that our intersections can function adequately. The project, there was discussion of sidewalks. There are project conditions to ensure that there are sidewalks all around this site. And in fact, I think it's going to be rebuilding a number of the sidewalks. Is that correct, Alvin?
That's correct.
Just on that topic, may I ask for a clarification? What I understood from the public comment period was part of the issue is on the other side of the street. Is that correct?
The question is, part of the consideration is the sidewalk and frontage improvements on the south side of Woolner or on the east side of Gregory Lane. Is that a fair restatement?
That's the question.
Okay, gotcha. Yes, and I'd just like to take that opportunity. Nice segue, thank you. But I'd like to take that opportunity to kind of provide some response for the concerns and thoughts that the residents out here have about frequent pedestrians traveling along this thoroughway. With consideration for the progressive movement of allowing alternative and additional modes of transportation, one of those being walking, the city requires new developments to construct sidewalks along their project frontages typically, and we kind of touched on that a little bit here where as part of this development, new sidewalks will be constructed along Woolner Avenue and Gregory Lane, as well as repairs to sidewalks along their project frontage. With that note, that's for new developments, and as we progress forward, this will be a continued requirement from the city. I did hear some concerns about kids traveling along the sidewalks and walking to school nearby. City staff did take that into consideration when reviewing this project, and as part of the conditions of development for this project, one of the requirements is studying the intersection here. I think that's Edwards Lane, if I recall, along the south side of Woolner, to look at what that path of travel is and to consider installing sidewalk crossing at that location to help better facilitate that pedestrians walking along that area. And that is also a condition of development for this project. I'd like to amplify that the crosswalk wasn't necessarily required as part of a study or as part of an analysis, but staff and the development team did understand the proximity to the schools and the transportation center, and we wanted to encourage that mode of transportation.
The one other item I'll note, there were comments about the parking. Based on the city standards, the project not only provides as many parking spaces as our zoning code requires, provides an additional 26 spaces. So it's actually over-parked relative to what the city's code requires.
So just a couple of the clarification issues before we get into more deliberation and additional questions. There were a number of concerns raised about the fence on the, I'll call it north side of the project. Who's best to address those questions?
I think our planner here, or April, would be best suited to respond to that.
April, would you like to take that?
Yes, I'd also ask the applicant to join in. I don't know if hearing any of those comments have changed any idea that they might have about the approach to the north side of the site. But it is heavily landscaped. I know that one of the public comments was talking about tree roots, but you kind of can't have both. So, I mean, you have to have both. If you're going to put in landscaping, then you want it to grow and provide that buffer between the two sites. And the staff has reviewed the proposed landscaping in that area and determined that it is in conformance with what the city anticipates for their tree guidelines. And so when I reviewed the project, in my opinion, it was, again, as Dave Feinstein mentioned, it's really what was anticipated, and it conforms to the city's standards. If the commission wants to have the applicant consider something else, that's certainly possible, but as it stands now, it meets the city's requirements.
Thank you.
Commissioner, may I speak?
Yes.
Yeah, so I wanted to reiterate what David mentioned in terms of the type of projects that the city wants to see, and this is exactly what the city wants to see. And one of the reasons why the state took away the level of service and congestion was to look at BMT and how efficient a site was in terms of walking and biking to facilities. And so, and this particular project not only screens out from affordability, but also screens out from the fact that it's close proximity to all the amenities. And so that people can, if they can't own a car, then they can walk to the transit center. They can walk to amenities like Target and those other facilities. And so under the BMT criteria, which is what the state requires now, it is exempt and it's not considered a traffic impact. And so I just, we understand that there's gonna be more traffic. We understand but those things were also analyzed during the specific plan. And under the specific plan, everything was met and was fine. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that.
Just so everyone will understand, VMT is vehicle miles traveled. And Garland, if you wouldn't mind just taking a minute or two and describe how that process works.
So the state enacted, I think it was in 2021 or 2020 in June or July, the vehicles miles of travel. And it was a new law that was placed on projects to make them more efficient, meaning that they wanted infill development to happen, and so in order to reduce the need to drive. So, for example, driving a vehicle, if you're living on the outskirts of the city and driving into the city, then your vehicle's miles traveled to the city would be far greater than one that would be in the denser part of the community or downtown area. And so in order to do that, that was a reason for doing that, in addition to greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. And so when they enacted this, they set a criteria. And so projects that came into the area had to meet a certain vehicle miles traveled based on the region average. And so the regional average is within 15%. And so as long as a project is within 15%, then that project, along with some other criteria, could be considered exempt and does not have to do additional traffic analysis. And so that's generally what the state was attempting to do with the vehicle miles traveled.
Thank you. And just before we turn it back for deliberation, Mr. Feinstein, would you take a minute or two and just outline for everyone some of the changes that have happened and are planned to happen in Allen Witt, as there were a few comments about that?
Yeah, so several years ago, the city adopted essentially a remodeling plan, I guess you would call it, for Allen Witt Park. I'm not with our Parks Department, so I'm not up to speed on everything that's happened, but there was a comment about the dog park, and that's correct. The dog park was put in as we heard from many residents, yes, we need better facilities for dogs. I can't speak exactly to where they are, where the Parks and Rec Department is in terms of overhauling the park, but there is a complete remodel plan for that. And I don't know, Alvin, if you have been involved at all in that, if you have any more update.
Sure. So just to provide some context for the members of the public and the Planning Commission here, back in 2018 or 2019, City Council had reviewed and authorized the Allen Witt Park remodeling, paraphrasing here, remodeling into four phases. Phase one included the dog park, and that effort has been completed and is now open to the public to enjoy. I'm not sure where phase two stands currently, but we can certainly look into that and provide additional information to the commissioners here.
So as I understand it, the overall project amounts to approximately $30 million over a number of years. So it's a major remodeling, so to speak. And if I'm not mistaken, currently the tennis courts and pickleball, though I'm a tennis enthusiast, so I say that lightly, pickleball is in process of being, those courts being renovated.
That's correct. We're generally reaching out to we are reaching out to our public to get an assessment or a feel for, what kind of amenities our residents would look for, and pickleball was one of the considerations for the phase two, yes.
And that's scheduled to be completed this summer, is that correct?
I will double check on that for you, but that is my understanding.
Okay. So have I missed anything? Are we ready for deliberation? Commissioners, thoughts and comments based on what we've heard tonight?
I just want to chime in about Allen Witt Park and lead into a question with that, because I know part of the redesign for Allen Witt Park was to create a through fare so the police could start driving through the park, because prior it had been a problem with, the police having to actually get out and walk to patrol the inside of the park. Do you happen to know where we are on that? I'm not sure if I can ask him that, or if we should just deliberate amongst ourselves. I'm not sure what the legalities are, but I'm wondering if you know where we are with that part of it.
We can definitely look into, that information and which phase of Allen Witt Park remodeling that's anticipated to occur, but we can definitely get that answer for you.
Yeah, but I think you raise a good point that one of the objectives of that remodel plan was to create better security and better ability for our police in this area. So we'll get back to you with when that's built into the phasing, but one way or the other, as that project is completed, you will have better security ability for our police in this area.
Just to follow up on that, Commissioner Evans, a number of the comments are real concerns, but they're not project-specific concerns. So security, crime, and otherwise, while there may be some impact, there are sort of systemic problems that will happen whether this project goes forward or not. Other questions, comments?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Smith. I'm not quite sure I agree with your comment, Chairperson Matthews. I agree that these are systemic problems, and I think all of that is taken into consideration when we are deliberating and deciding if we should approve an applicant. So I think it's important, and I appreciate the comments from the public. I think it's important to have a holistic approach to our decisions. So I don't think it's so necessarily controversial.
Perhaps I did not express myself clearly. What I'm referring to is the fact that there may be auto mechanic on Texas driving through. That's going to happen whether this project happens or not. That's the type of thing that I was trying to refer to.
Well, and I had actually brought it up because someone had brought up earlier that this particular site was going to be working with a safety plan. And I don't recall the name of it, but there's a charge when you have like a certain amount of apartment units or whatever, they're going to be working with a safety plan. If someone can review that, maybe Mr. Feinstein can touch on that for us.
Yeah, it's our crime-free multi-housing, and I think April, I think you're prepared to respond to that, yes? April or?
Yes, one of
Mailing?
the conditions that applies to this project, and in fact to any multifamily project in the city, is that they must agree to work with the police department in establishing a crime-free multifamily housing program specific to their project. It's based on something called CEPTED, which is crime-oriented design standards that's used in many locations across the United States and even in other countries. And the police department and the applicant work together so that the applicant comes up with a satisfactory program that addresses the kinds of concerns with crime that the police can identify as likely to require attention at that particular site. So that is a condition of the project.
Yeah, and if I might just add, based on anecdotal personal experience, because of my employment, I deal with some properties on Dana Drive. 5 years ago, that was one of the highest crime areas before this program was instituted. Subsequently, the crime has been greatly reduced, and so it's proven itself to be quite effective. Other questions, concerns, comments? Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, just a quick comment on the homelessness and crime, but I have other things. But obviously, I think anybody that knows that area knows it's an area that needs a lot of police presence to keep things, from kind of backsliding. And I hope that if this project does move forward, that we do kind of beef up the infrastructure, especially if there's other projects like this coming forward. I really do think that we need to make sure that we not backslide on some of these programs to reduce crime, because it's certainly still there. We've heard that from the people in the room, and I know that that's an issue, but that's more of a larger issue. As far as the security and privacy, I don't think the fencing is sufficient. I do think, as someone stated in the comment period, public comment, that I think there's a concrete wall. I think that we need a concrete wall there, probably on the north and west side, it seems. I don't think that that's going to be, the fencing would be enough. And as far as the parking, I've been in that area quite a bit. I have a few relatives that have lived in that area, and parking is a problem. It causes issues. It causes disputes among the neighbors, which ends up generating more police calls. And I don't know, I'm sure people have gotten into fights or arguments over that a lot, other than just having to call the police to try to get someone to move out of their driveway or off, kind of blocking them in. I've had that happen to me personally. I think that it seems like there's going to be about 600, 700 new people living there, and adding 168 apartments, I guess 250 parking spots, which is probably going to need more like 300 or 400 parking spots. I really don't know where those folks are going to park, because if there's already existing parking issues in that neighborhood, which I've seen firsthand, a lot of people, anybody that's been to the area knows that's an issue. It's not a surprise. Can we create a condition to add more parking spots so it at least doesn't disturb the neighborhood? We know there's an existing issue with parking there, and can we create some kind of condition to add 2 parking spots per unit? I mean, to me, that seems reasonable, to at least try not to make it worse for the neighbors. So I think Mr. Feinstein said that the minimum requirement was, I guess, 26 less than what we have. So my question was going to be, can we open that up to discuss that? And it seems like that is kind of the main issue that I have, is the parking. A lot of the other issues is going to be a bigger thing than we're going to solve in this room. But I think if we can try to address that parking issue, I think that it could make it a little better of a project.
Thank you. Other questions, comments?
I do have one comment, and mine has to do with the sidewalks. Because I heard the one gentleman, he talked about how the sidewalks aren't adequate, and especially when we think about the children. Because personally, I wouldn't want to see the children have to walk on the street. So there should be a condition to have sidewalks as well. I think the parking and the sidewalks would be my main issues.
There already is a condition for sidewalks.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
And I would simply point out that it's the city's standards that apply here, and they're already over parking compared to the city's standards. So it's kind of a difficult leap to make that even though the city said this is what's required now, something additional is required. So maybe that's something that the city attorney would want to weigh in on, but I think that's a little bit of a slippery slope.
But it's not a legal issue. I mean, we're just talking about, can we add a condition for more spots? It's already been established that we aren't stuck with a certain number of spots. We've added 26 spots. And what I would request is that whatever the number is, I think 2 per unit seems reasonable. Maybe even some people might think that's, more than 2 per unit is reasonable, and they could have a good argument. But I just think that we need more parking spots, and I'm hoping that, I don't think there's a legal issue that we can require more parking spots, but I'll let county council jump in, or city council.
Good evening, Chair and members of the commission. It is in fact a legal issue here, since the city's code lays out the amount of parking that the city can require. So we can ask for more parking, and we can work with an applicant to provide more amenities, but we cannot require more parking than the code lays out.
Thank you.
Yeah, just first of all, I would be against that. I don't see where we want to punish a developer for a city ordinance that's in place. I think there's another means which the commission can address the city and go back and look at codes and ways to do that. Because I would bet that our standard that's in place is probably old. And today, in the last decade, more and more people have more and more cars, so things have changed, right? You've probably seen, houses go from 1-car garage to 2-car to 3-car, and 3 cars with 3-car garage with 3 cars parked in the driveway and 2 cars parked on the street. It's really common, right? So I understand the need. I certainly do. I certainly understand there's going to be a congested traffic problem and parking issue, but I don't believe that we can punish the developer who's done everything they can to meet the city requirements and exceed those expectations in order to facilitate something. I also want to just comment that I'm excited because I feel like, 10 years ago when we started working on the Heart of Fairfield plan, the goal really was to take these blighted lots, these abandoned areas that were becoming homeless encampments, that were becoming drug user places and hubs, for us to say, how can we infill the city rather than continually sprawl and continually put a burden on our precious agricultural land out there, and start attracting developers to come in. I think this is a beautiful development. I think you did a wonderful job of making it look good. It's going to look beautiful there. And I maybe it's the optimism in me, but I think that we would be attracting really good people rather than just assume we're going to attract a bunch of bad people. And I think that good people will bring good resources, good environments, good attitudes, and encourage that neighborhood overall to be better. And I think that that's really the ultimate plan for the city of Fairfield, and the Heart of Fairfield plan is to get the downtown more pedestrian friendly and bring in these infill developments that allow for us to have a little more pride in the neighborhoods we live in, and provide, again, what this does so well is provide good, affordable housing without it being plagiarized with Section 8. I understand there's a handful, 4 or 5 units, which we'll do, but it's like affordable housing. Rent has gone up 45% in 12 months. $2,400 properties are renting for $3,500 in Fairfield right now. That's crazy, right? You go get a 1-bedroom apartment over in Verdant and it's $3,200 a month. That's insane. People in Fairfield can't live like that. We've got to find ways to get people in housing and give them affordable opportunities, especially our city workers, especially our government employees, especially those people in service who are on a less than opportunistic means of developing a sales commission or other means of revenue or fixed incomes and need a place to stay. And I think this is a great opportunity for that. I wouldn't be opposed to designing something that barricades between more so. I don't really know the specific plan that you have between Park Village, and this development, although I do think that having what's probably going to be a 30-foot, a 40-foot parking space, then landscaping and fencing is probably going to be adequate enough, and the buildings are going to be secure enough to where you're putting gates in, and it is a gated entrance, right? Like they're going to have a gate to get in and a gate to get out. They're not going to just have a free flow with no gate there, is from what I see in the plan. So I think it creates a secure environment and attracts good for the neighborhood, so I like it.
Thank you, Commissioner McDonald. Just to follow up, is there any grade change between the two parcels on the north side? Do we know?
We can look into that question and provide a response.
And I'm sorry, just one other question that was brought up was prevailing wage. Is anyone prepared to respond to that?
Yeah, it's a question for the applicant. It's not a purview of the city to mandate, but you can certainly ask the applicant if they wish to respond to that.
The project doesn't have any prevailing wage requirements, although the project will be bid out to all those interested in the work.
And even if it's not a requirement, economic conditions and labor are such that I would say it's a likelihood you're going to be at that level to get the necessary construction workers.
If I'm correct, I think the question was more directed as to whether or not you're going to be using unionized workers, right? In that sense, like the carpenters association, things like that. That we're not specifically putting those demands on them, or are we, or are they using them? I think that was the question.
Well, what I heard was will be prevailing wage, which usually means will be union. But my point is to get the necessary construction workers, you're going to be at a level which is more or less on par with union wages simply to get the project completed.
The entire project will be bid out to both union and non-union shops, and bids will be evaluated from there.
But I think your point is correct, that has been made. That's not a requirement.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions, comments by the commissioners?
Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Just some comments. I do like the idea of affordable housing. I think that's important. And I think as a commission, as a community, we have to balance what that looks like. And I think it's important to have multi-family unit dwellings. And I like the idea that this is a 5013C coming in, but it's just balancing, and we all as a community have to stretch because housing has to come from someplace. But I do have concerns about the parking in this area. And is this, even though part of the Heart of Fairfield plan that we are right up to that 168 units, we have to balance with new citizens coming in as well as the community that exists, and what's that balance. So that's what I'm looking at. And I do not equate affordable housing with an increased crime. And crime prevention doesn't necessarily mean bringing in police. It means working with the community and looking at what are some of those systemic reasons that we have crime. So I just want to publicly say that as well. So these are the things that I'm deliberating at the moment.
Thank you. Commissioner Evans, did you?
Yes. I think earlier one of my constituents brought up addressing the city on maybe a few things, and I think one of the things that may be able to be addressed with the city is possibly opening up some of Park Lane for parking, because I think some of the issue with the parking on Gregory Lane is that where there's high-density apartment units on that particular street, there's no parking on that whole street. So then all of the overflow goes out to Gregory Lane, and that contributes to the congestion, and you couple that with what's happening at the park and all of that, and it just becomes quite problematic. And as far as the project, I really would like to echo your sentiments just now that we're going to have to make room, and I think that anyone that lives in an area with open space, and especially just kind of a vacant open space, should be aware that whether you live in this community or communities abroad, it's going to be looked at for potential development. That's one of the mandates put forth by Governor Newsom himself, that we have to have more developments. The problem with housing in California is not just the issue of finance or qualifying, it's also lack of housing. So we are going to have to start utilizing these spaces, and you honestly don't want just open vacant spaces unless they are being utilized for something like parklands or whatnot, because what has been equated to crime is blight and empty vacant lots. So that's the kind of thing that we do want to get rid of, and I'm excited to hear about a sidewalk coming. It's hard to, fathom that we're still building sidewalks in 2022. Well, so with that said, I think it's fair to say that Fairfield is a great place to live, but we can stand some improvements. And I think that this project is an improvement. I'm excited about it because I've been wondering for years what's going to go there. And I mean, we all know that it can't be a grocery store. It's unlikely that we're going to build a grocery store in a neighborhood across the street from a school, but something's going to go there. So there is going to be traffic. However, I do have an issue with one exit for 200 and something cars. I just see that as being problematic for the people that live there. And I know people would not want to exit on Gregory Lane, but again, maybe if we can open up parking somewhere else, maybe that can be an option, but I just don't see that. I see that as being problematic with having one exit right there. And then also the kids walking in front of that. Just when you're talking about the mornings and people are rushing out to work and the kids walking, they're not paying attention. There has to be some kind of tweaks that we can do. I don't know if it would be more signage or maybe putting the exit further back or something that just will, just alert the children and the parents walking that way that, okay, here comes cars. Because I know the idea of this is to have it closer to the sidewalk and the apartments closer in that manner. But with people in the morning, we already have kids getting hit at schools in Cordelia. So I'm just really concerned about that and concerned about the backup in the morning within the complex of, even if it's 100 cars trying to get out during rush hour or even trying to get in to one exit. I just think that there could be a few tweaks. I also think that there needs to be a little bit more security with Allenwood Park on that side, because I know that the apartment communities that are already adjacent to Allenwood Park have had people cutting the fencing and breaking in that manner. So I do know that that's an issue, and especially when you have a pool, I wonder about kids breaking in and getting the only pool, for free in the community. I'm just speaking to these things, not so particularly professionally, but these are the things we wonder about as community members, right? And things we wonder about for future planning. So while some of it may not be, in our scope, I do think the security aspect on the park side, and then just the amount of exits and the placement of the particular exit on Woolner is problematic for me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, I think some of the previous comments by the commissioners, I think were sound. I think that, that there's a reason why this parcel was identified in the heart of Fairfield plan, the area it could use change. The vacant lots, it can become blighted, and that certainly is problematic. As far as the affordability, I think that's certainly something that people know, that we need some affordable housing options, and I think that location seems to be a fair location for that. And I hope that if this is approved, that it would help count toward our regional housing figures. I would hope so. I'm not sure if that's something that can be addressed by staff, but I do really hope that there's a way to either address the parking or to potentially reduce the units so that the parking can be a little less of a disturbance to the neighborhood. And I have a sense that it may not change, but that's just my 2 cents, and I'm not sure if I can support it if we don't have the barrier and some way to address the parking.
Okay. If there are no other questions or comments, we have a request for resolution. Do we have anyone willing to make a motion to accept that resolution?
I'll make that motion that we adopt Resolution 2021-6, Development Review for the DR 2021-022.
Just point of clarification, are we 2022 or 2021?
It's 2022.
Okay. Amend that then.
And is there a second to that motion?
I second it.
Okay, Mr. Feinstein, may we have the roll call vote, please?
Yes. Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner Werblin?
Nay.
Commissioner Smith?
No.
Commissioner Evans?
Nay.
Commissioner Cruzen?
Yes.
Commissioner Childs?
Yes.
And Commissioner Matthews?
Yes.
Okay.
So the motion carries?
Motion carries.
Okay, we thank all of our neighbors for being here, and I think it's an open issue that will, if there are further concerns, could be addressed at the city council level.
That's
correct. Do you want to clarify that?
Yes, so the Planning Commission's decision is appealable to the City Council. There is an application at the planning counter that can be picked up or online to appeal. So there is a charge. I don't have the charge in front of me, but there's a cost for the appeal. But yeah, it is appealable.
Okay, we're now moving on to item C. This is a hearing on the request by William Warren Group to construct 8 one-story structures, 355 storage unit, and a rental office on a vacant parcel. The staff person is Mr. Matt Jones. Please proceed.
Excuse me, Mr. Matthews, would it be possible for us to get like a 2-3 minute break just to use the restroom or whatever? We've been there for 2 hours.
Excellent
Would that be
point.
great?
Yes.
Thank you.
Let's take a 5-minute break. We didn't officially, do I need to reopen or are we?
No.
Okay. Matt, please proceed.
Why don't you introduce the next item, if you would, just read what the item is.
I did
Did you
before
already
we
open?
broke.
Hi there. Thank you all for the opportunity to present tonight. I'm going to be working on the project for StoreQuest Express DR 2020-002. So for the project location, it's at 1094 Horizon Drive. Site size is about 2.7 acres. Existing land use, the site's vacant right now. And the zoning designation, service commercial, it's a planned development overlay as well. Also just wanted to add that as of this time, there were no public comments that were received by staff. The map identifies the location of the site within the context of the surrounding area. It's located on Horizon, which is off of Claybank to the east. The site intersects with Western at the south of the property. The site is surrounded by natural open space to the north, which is recreationally zoned, and around it on the other sides is service commercial uses. And then there's single-family homes on the other side of that strip on the north side. General plan designation, as mentioned before, service commercial for both the general plan and zoning, but the zoning's got the planned development overlay. Consistent with the surrounding businesses, this proposal would be consistent with the surrounding businesses. We're looking at uses like auto repair, smog check services, party rental warehouses, plumbing service shops. The municipal code lists mini storage as a permitted use within the general plan and the zoning code designations. Therefore, there's no conditional use permit required for this use. So the use at the site is not subject to review by the Planning Commission. Let's see. The parcel has a planned development overlay, as I mentioned earlier, and that was included as part of the 1993 Western Business Park development. It added a few additional requirements, increasing the rear yard setback, which we're taking to assume is going to be the recreational use on the north side of the property. It requires between 0 and 10 feet of landscaping in the setback area adjacent to that recreation parcel, which would be subject to the city's discretion. However, the applicant already decided to provide 10 feet setback with the entire area being landscaped. So they already meet that requirement. And then lastly, there's a masonry wall in lieu fee that the applicant is required to pay, and that is listed. It's included as in the conditions of approval as condition of approval 1.2, where you can find additional information about what that fee would look like. For the site plan, it's just over 50,000 square feet. The site plan can be found on the third page of the project plan set. It's under the 0.5 FAR threshold. It's just 0.43, so just under that. It's under the 35-foot height by right permitted threshold. It's at 24 feet. It falls within that standard. They're going to be proposing grading, paving, and new utilities. Of course, they would need to obtain all relevant permits with Public Works for those. and they exceed the parking standard. It's 8 required, and they're providing 9 with 1 ADA compliance spot. For the elevations, page 10 of the plan set, they're architecturally compatible with the surrounding area, and they do provide multiple planes on a single elevation, movement in their facade, varied roofline heights, decorative louvers, and varied color patterns, which would provide visual relief. Pretty good design for storage facility, I would say. And then they're going to have a trash enclosure that has complementary materials and colors. As mentioned earlier, for the key conditions for this project, there's going to be a sound wall in lieu fee required, stormwater treatment areas with enhancements. They have bioretention areas that they proposed on the site plan. They'll be working with Planning and Public Works to have appropriate landscaping for those areas. And then Public Works conditions of approval for the project. They're going to be required to pay for improvements in the public right-of-way, which are detailed in the Public Works memo conditions that are attached to your staff report. Applicant is going to be constructing a new sidewalk. There's currently not a sidewalk fronting that side of Horizon, so they're going to be picking up that construction cost. For the trash enclosure, they are going to be providing one that they're required to have access for tenants of the space, and we're going to require them to put in signage for proper waste diversion for the tenants as well. And then for environmental review, staff reviewed the submittal from the applicant. They submitted a VMT analysis, they submitted biological resource assessment, and they also submitted noise greenhouse gas assessment with their initial application submittal. And staff reviewed and per CEQA determined that it's categorically exempt. Section 15332, which is infill development. As with the last project, there's the 4 criteria it needs to meet. It's consistent with general plan and zoning. It's less than 5 acres, surrounded by urban uses. No value as habitat for rare endangered species, and no significant impacts for traffic noise, air quality, or water quality. I just also wanted to note that there was a note, SOAR Environmental Consulting did the analysis for them for these different items, and there were BMPs that were included from their noise study, and which we are including as a condition of approval, which you can find as condition of approval 1.3. So the recommendation before you today is to adopt the resolution 2022-07, granting the approval of development review DR 2022-001. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Matt. Questions from the commissioners?
I'm curious to know if staff knows the distance between the next storage facility from this proposed location. And this is anecdotal. It seems like everywhere I drive, I see a storage facility. So I would love to hear if staff has any comments.
So to Commissioner Werblund's point, we approved, I don't know, 18 months ago, another storage unit. Can you indicate where that is? It was in this general vicinity.
Yeah, I can if, and I missed it. Was there an aerial?
Oh,
Yeah, there was an
aerial. And I'll identify.
Oh, the general, yep, that one.
There we go. Okay. So the nearest one that exists is, and I guess you could call it across the street. You've got Western Street and Horizon Drive that sort of come together just to the lower left of that red star. And on the other side of the lower left of the red star is another storage facility. There are a couple of vacant, or there's a vacant parcel that's sort of a long rectangular piece also on Horizon Drive, and that's the one that you had mentioned.
Okay.
It was actually a little over 2 years ago. That approval has expired. So there is no...
And they decided not to construct.
They didn't choose to construct, and they didn't choose to seek a time extension for their entitlement.
Okay.
Let me just get to one point, and Matt mentioned it a little bit. So the zoning for this site is commercial service, which is sort of our, I don't don't want to mischaracterize it, but it's our more utility kind of commercial zone where it's not necessarily for focus on retail sales, but it's more on auto repair, more utility kinds of uses like storage. This is our one zoning district that this whole business park has right here, where mini storage is an actual permitted use, where there's no discretion over can you do the use, at least at the planning commission level. Most other zoning districts, including a number that we've seen storage come before the planning commission, does require a use permit. And one of the things that we look at is over concentration. And so many of the mini storages that come before you, you actually do have some discretion to say, you know what, we have too many in this area. This, however, is the one zoning district that the city set aside to say, this is an area that is perfectly fine for mini storage, and if every property came through with mini storage under the existing zoning, that's an allowed activity. So, but other parts of the city where we've allowed them, you do have that discretion. This just isn't one of those areas.
Thank you. That's helpful information because I'm balancing that with what could be in this space that would generate jobs. Thank you.
Other questions? Hearing no other questions, I will open the public hearing. I see no cards. Are there any persons online?
There are no hands raised.
Okay.
Can I add something really quick? The applicant is also present and they're able to speak if you have any questions for them.
All right. We'll take that up in perhaps we have one. Sir, did you want to make a public comment? Yes, sir. Okay, if you can fill out your card and bring it up, we'll be happy to listen to you. Yeah, you can fill it out afterwards, so why don't you just come forward? Pardon? Yeah. Would you please introduce yourself too?
My name's William Penn. I've lived in this town for over 50 years. And I feel the same concerns as Commissioner Werblin has stated about, having all these storage places, within proximities of each other. And I guess this is zoned where it's perfectly okay for that. But, with the congestion and stuff in town and all the traffic, it's a major task. If a family wants to go and say, what about an In-N-Out burger? They employ lots of people. And just more things that would be utilized by the surrounding residents to make life easier for them. Who knows, we got a storage facility there. I mean, it could be people from out of town just storing their stuff here because maybe they got a cheaper rate here than they do in Hayward. Who knows? But something for the local people, to make their lives easier instead of having to go across town or drive through traffic to go have a burger someplace or get something done, or a convenience store or something. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you for sharing your concerns. If there are no other, and sir, if you would, we do want to keep a record of your attendance and participation. If there are no other public comments, I will close the public hearing portion and return the matter to deliberation with the commissioners. If there are no other questions, may Is someone interested in making a motion?
I make a motion that we approve 2022-07 for developmental review.
And is there a second?
I second.
Mr. Feinstein, will you conduct a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Werblin,
Yay.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Commissioner Cruzen,
Yes.
Commissioner Childs,
Yes.
and Commissioner Matthews.
Yes. Okay, the motion carries. And with that, we now are moving into the director's report. Mr. Feinstein.
Yeah, several things to report to you. The first is, and I mentioned this at our last meeting, but I just want to remind everybody, the city will be holding a workshop on our general plan update with a specific focus on the Cordelia area. And that'll be tomorrow night over at the Cordelia Library at 6 o'clock. It'll run till 7:30, so if you're not able to show up right away, it'll be going on for an hour and a half, plenty of time to come on over, learn about our general plan update, and provide input to the city about what you'd like to see for the Cordelia area. Do you have a particular vision? Are there things that you think are missing? Are there things you think you'd like to see built or not built? Or changes that you would like to see? Tomorrow night's a great opportunity if you're in the Cordelia area to come on out and learn about the project and provide your input. We are also, at the same time we're updating our general plan, we're updating the housing element of the general plan. It's the one section of our general plan that the state says you have to update more frequently. We have to update it every 8 years. Our general plan's almost 30 years old, but the housing element, we have to update every 8 years. And we're going to be holding a workshop. This one's going to be on Zoom. We found some of our housing workshops work better where people can come in remotely because we have a number of constituents from out of town who have interest in our housing element. So we're going to do that on Zoom on May 9th, and that'll also be at 6 o'clock. And that'll be an opportunity to learn about the housing element and provide input on strategies that folks have that they think are valuable for ensuring that we're not only providing housing, but affordable housing. So that'll be on May 9th on Zoom. If you would like to participate, you can go to fairfieldforward.com. That's fairfieldforward.com, all one word. And there's a link where you can sign up and you'll get the Zoom link for that meeting. So planning commissioners, you're also welcome to do that, and I'll forward on some information for you if you want to attend so that you can get that Zoom link. The other item is, at the moment, we don't have any scheduled items for your next meeting, so most likely you're going to see that be canceled, but we will have items for your second meeting in May. There's both an application that's coming in. We're also working to get a presentation for you on the 680-80 Highway 12 interchange improvements, as well as, and this follows along with our housing element, an update on the housing requirements that are coming down to us from the state in terms of what we call the regional housing needs allocation, which is a number of housing units that the city's going to be expected to develop over the coming 8 years. And we'll also provide you an update on where we are with our current, we're in the middle or towards the end of an 8-year cycle, where we are with that. So we'll give you that update as well at your May meeting. One thing I do want to point out, and I don't want to, we shouldn't get into it too much because it's not on the agenda, but a little education. I'm hearing a number of issues of concern that individual planning commissioners have about certain standards the city has, and staff tells you it's not something that's within your purview. I do want just to remind you that if there are things that you don't like about the city standards, there are opportunities to weigh in on potential changes. One of the things that we will be bringing somewhere in the next few months is an update to our zoning ordinance, not a complete update, but every year we bring a package of changes, and that'll be an opportunity for you to make recommendations to the city council if there's issues that you're not happy with our zoning, whether it's allowed uses, conditionally permitted uses, parking ratios, all those kinds of things. So there will be an opportunity to weigh in and make recommendations to the city council if there's changes that you think should be made to the zoning. So when we schedule that for you, we'll give you some time, we'll let you know in advance so that you can think about anything that you may want to recommend to the city council. So with that,
Again, just for clarification, when is that going to happen?
so it hasn't been scheduled yet, but it'll probably be somewhere early summer. I think we'll come back.
If we had, at any given time, if we wanted to direct a concern, because we've seen this quite often now through all of these developments, that parking is a consistent issue. And again, I get back to the fact that that's probably just because it's a dated ordinance that just hasn't been, nobody's thought like, well, okay, people are driving more cars today, so maybe that should be updated. Is there a more efficient process for doing that? Just because, again, I don't like to punish developers who've already worked, all this time under one guidance, and then all of a sudden they come up here and they get surprised that we don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, and I'll look to the city attorney as to whether or not we have to agendize a special discussion on that, or if that can just be wrapped in with a discussion of the zoning update.
We can bring a zoning update, and the agenda description and staff report would outline the different areas that we were discussing. And as long as it was noted somewhere in there that we are going to be discussing parking requirements, we can open that discussion. We can have a discussion. You could make specific recommendations for zone changes. Staff could present perhaps ideas or options for zone changes, and we can have that conversation.
I'd be in favor of doing that as soon as we can agendize.
And we
that.
hear that there's
Second.
concerns about parking, so we can bring you information at that time and let you weigh what kind of a recommendation you'd like to make to the city council.
I have a quick question as well, since we're speaking about legalities and such, because I know you said that we're doing the housing element is going to be discussed on May 9th, and being that we're discussing the housing element as part of the general plan, how does that work exactly with the Heart of Fairfield plan? So say if you wanted something different than what the Heart of Fairfield plan says, is the Heart of Fairfield plan trump what the general plan folks would want? I'm just wondering how that works.
So I can respond to that in general terms. The housing element is actually, it's very much defined by statute. There's a statute that tells us exactly what should be in the housing element. And we do need the housing element to be consistent with the rest of the general plan, but the law allows us to adopt the housing element first and then bring the rest of the general plan into consistency with it. At the time the final general plan is adopted, to the extent it conflicts with the Heart of Fairfield specific plan, the new general plan will apply. It's the most recently adopted regulations would control in that circumstance. So there are going to be opportunities to perhaps look at the Heart of Fairfield specific plan, and Mr. Feinstein and I can discuss sort of the mechanics of whether or not we would, if the council desired us to make changes to the Heart of Fairfield, I'd probably suggest that we bring back a revised Heart of Fairfield specific plan at some point so that we don't lose the effectiveness of that document by having it in conflict with the general plan. Hopefully that helps answer your question. I think I tried.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Mr. Feinstein, you concluded your report. Do commissioners have any additional items? Mr. Smith?
Probably more of a question, but when is our housing element due? And I imagine there's going to be a lot of discussion both on the planning commission and community and ultimately the council, but when is that due?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of fluidity in the due date. So officially it's due, I believe, January 1st of 2023. The state gives us a 120-day grace period beyond that to formally get it adopted. Part of that process, we have to prepare a draft, which we submit to the state for their review. But at the same time that we're getting ready to submit it to the state, we will bring that before the Planning Commission, give you a full overview of that, of what's in there, and let you weigh in on your thoughts on that. So I can probably, it's probably best when I come back in May with an overview of our regional housing needs, that maybe we write the agenda item a little broader so we can have some discussion on housing, on the housing element.
Yeah, I think that would be great. More discussion and to feel like we're not rushed necessarily.
Yeah.
It sounds like we have a good amount of time.
We got
so-
plenty of time.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Any other commissioner reports or comments?
Yes. Do you know if for the housing element meeting, if that's, I know right now it's on Zoom, will they also do in-person meetings or multiple meetings, or is it just this one meeting? That's my first question. And then my second question is, and maybe this could be addressed later as more of an education for me as a new commissioner, of the delineation between my opinion as a commissioner in this forum versus myself as a citizen participating in other meetings, and what's that delineation? Thank you.
I would be happy to speak with you or any of the commissioners offline to address that. No problem.
Thank you.
That's a very good question, though.
Yeah, in general, if you have any questions about legal matters with, how you operate as a commissioner, yeah, our assistant city attorney is here exactly for that reason, to help advise you.
I think he promoted me. I'm the assistant city attorney.
All right. Hearing no more comments, we are adjourned to our next meeting of May 11th, 2022. Thank you.